cannot, but it is 7:02. And we do not have a quorum, as those in the audience and if there's those that are live streaming can see. But in our council rules, those members that are present can agree or agree not to have a recess for up to 1 hour to allow council members to arrive to give us a quorum. We are expecting 3 council members to arrive. I don't have an exact time, but I have been told by three of them that they expect to be at this meeting, but late. So with that, I would ask Mrs. Kilway if she would be willing to recess or not.
Yes, I'm willing to recess.
I am willing to recess as well. So with that, we will recess for up to 1 hour. I apologize to our guests. Father Mike, very sorry. Mr. O'Brien, sorry. Our guest. Everyone is free to stay and welcomed for sure to stay. Those, we understand you have lives. We understand that you took time out of your schedule to watch us do our jobs. This is the first time I've ever had to deal with this in a long time serving. I don't know if the mayor remembers another time or not, but that's what we're going to do. So Father Mike, I understand, and Mr. O'Brien, I understand as well, and I apologize.
Mr. O'Neill.
Mr. O'Neill, I'm so sorry.
The Joint Dispatch Chairman.
So sorry. I need to get these bifocals fixed.
Yeah. He was going to make a presentation tonight, but we'll reschedule him for another time.
Okay. So that's what we're doing right now is we're waiting for at least 2 more council members to show up within an hour.
Madam Law Director, so can we start at any given time that we get additional 2 people between now and 1 hour?
That's correct. Anytime that we get a quorum.
Thank you.
for the city of Tallmadge. It is June 8th, 2023. We will dispense, if that's okay, with the prayer, but we will still do the pledge. Mayor, would you lead us?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance.
Thank you. Mrs. Burton, would you please call the, or excuse me, Mrs. Conti, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Bolus?
Here.
Mr. Bozek?
Here.
Mrs. Gutman?
Mrs. Gutman cannot be here this evening.
Mrs. Kilway?
Here.
Dennis Lowry?
Here,
Mr. Cisak?
Mr. Cisak expects to be late. So we have a quorum of 4. Did
That's
you
a
call
quorum.
Mrs. Allman?
I'm not sure.
No, Mrs. Allman.
Mrs.
I
Allman,
don't think
we
I heard.
knew Mrs. Allman could not be here this evening. All right, so we have a quorum of 4, so we can proceed. Item 4, minutes of May 25th. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve the motion, or the minutes of May 25th, 2023.
Second.
Mrs. Kilway and Mr. Bolus, any discussion on those minutes? Hearing none. Mrs. Conti?
Mr. Bozek?
Yes.
Mrs. Kilway?
Yes.
Mr. Lowry?
Yes.
Mr. Bolus?
Yes.
Minutes are approved 4-0. Item 5, the financial reports. Fire and EMS fund transfer in the amount of $180,000. Street maintenance and repair fund transfer in the amount of $200,000. And bond retirement transfer in the amount of $100,000 to council on 5/26/23. The appropriation report, fund report, and revenue report for the period ending 5/31/23 to council on 6/6/2023. May financial reports to council on 6/6/23. Tallmadge Recreation Center profit and loss report for the period ending 5/31/23 to council on 6/6/23. Income tax comparisons for the period ending 5/31/23 to council on 6/6/2023. Consolidated investment portfolio for the period ending 5/31/23 to council on 6/6/23. Income tax by source report for the month of May to council on 6/6/23. And the revenue comparisons for major funds for the period ending 5/31/23 to council on 6/6/23. Can I have a motion to accept those reports as prepared for us?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the reports? Mrs. Conti?
Mrs. Kilway?
Yes.
Mr. Lowry?
Yes.
Mr. Bolus?
Yes.
Mr. Bozek?
Yes.
Thank you. Receipt of those financials has been approved 4-0. Item 6, public hearings, we have none. Item 7, community input. This is the time on our agenda for those that are in the audience, that if anyone would like to address council for up to 2 minutes on anything that is not on our agenda, now is the time to do that. And you can just come to the lectern and please state your name. Seeing none, we will move on to item 8, agenda additions. Yes, sir, Mayor Klein.
David O'Neill was here earlier to do a presentation on the Joint Dispatch Center. He could not stay around any longer. I will try to reschedule him in the future council meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 9, reports of administrative officers. We'll start with you, Mayor.
Just a couple items. Congratulations to the girls softball team winning state. It was great 2 games that I attended last Thursday and last Saturday. Represented Tallmadge very well and Tallmadge schools, so congratulations to the girls softball. Update on the fire department, the doors are delivered. The doors are sitting in the back of the station. If you drive by, you can see them sitting there. Still waiting on a couple boxes to come in for the installation hardware, and we're waiting on that. So as soon as we get an update on that, I'll be able to update you further and ask for your ordinance 2023-54 as amended to be adopted tonight at 3rd reading. In the report.
Thank you, Director of Administration, Director of Safety. Everyone should be in receipt of Dr. Cooper's written email report. Anything to add to that, Mayor?
No.
Director of Public Service,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Rohr.
How are you? I'd like to request consideration of first reading adoption of ordinances 2023-57 and 2023-58.
We might not be able to do that because we only have 4 council people. Anything at first reading cannot go in effect for 30 days, and the next council meeting will be a little sooner, so we do not have enough council people here to do business.
Thank you. And then I just want to mention that we received the demo bids for 89 East Howell Road. They were opened on Tuesday. We got 7 bids. The lowest and best bid was Pro Quality Demolition for $638,000 to demo the 89 East Howell Road. So with the month's report, zoning department, we had 165 total permits issued, 101 which were street openings. Code violations, we had 29, 15 of which were property disrepair. For the cemetery, we had 4 total burials, all of which were cremains. Next slide, please. Parks and Rec, memberships there you can see was 7,221, which was a 9% increase from last year. We have a new number here, it's unique users, and that's the members who actually went into the rec center during the month. So we had 2,177 members actually used the rec center. Visits at the rec center, 15,000, and that was a 15% from last May. A couple events coming up, Touch a Truck, June 10th, the Chardon Polka Band, Music on the Circle, June 15th. Farmers Market starts June 15th, and the Akron Symphonic Winds, Music on the Circle, June 29th. The Parks Community Center is open, and majority of the work is done. There's still some touch-up work. It's difficult for the contractor to come in because now we're open for business, so they need a couple consecutive days, and we just can't offer that to them right now, so we've not been able to finish that up. The playground surface upgrade at Memorial Park is to begin July 5th. We're taking in consideration of the holiday and probably the use of that park, so we want to make sure that's done. That's that pour-into-place rubber surface that's both ADA and fall compliant. Pickleball tennis court at Lions are being color-coded this week, so that's looking pretty good. And Maca Pool membership sold 2019. Gate upgrades along the pool fence, so not sure if you guys know, but the gates around the perimeter fence at the pool were always chain locked, which didn't really serve a purpose in case of a safety issue. So Jessica Simons, the Park and Rec superintendent, came up with this idea of panic bar gates, and that's a picture of one. And that way there's an alarm on it, so if it is open from the inside to let somebody in, it does make an alarm. And you can see the bar around it, so you can't stick your fingers in to open that thing up any other way. And you can, now it's not chain locked, so if there is a windstorm or some reason why you got to exit, now you can exit without it being chained. Great news, the slide pumps are repaired and they're working well. The only problem is the pool isn't open today, so. Next slide. So that shows the gates that have the panic bars on them now. The X's are it. Of course, you can go through the tunnel in and out exit, but so now you have 4 exits throughout the property fence that you can get out at any time in case needed. There's picture of the pickleball courts.
In the kitchen.
They are blue, but the kitchen area is the green area, and I'm not sure if everybody is aware, that's where the net is to be at, in the kitchen area, and you're not allowed to play in the kitchen area. So it was important to delineate that kitchen area, I found out as we went through this process. The black asphalt has been covered up, so the border's all in green. They have one more color to add, they have one more coat to add. Typical, the supplier is stuck. So the last court, they could have finished yesterday or tomorrow. They will be back in on Tuesday to wrap this up. So, street department, 80 hours of burn mowing, 500 lineal feet of ditching, 2 culverts were jetted and videoed, 3 culverts were replaced. The citywide annual flowers was completed, citywide annual mulch, which was completed. Citywide sidewalk program was started, citywide pavement marking was completed, and I've got to be honest, that's probably the best pavement marking I've seen. That's some crisp lines. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, that was a great job. Ohio EPA audit. This was the water audit. So we had a storm sewer one in January. We had the drinking water one on April 25th. Even though it's called a sanitary survey, that's what it's called. It's the audit. The EPA audit, Tallmadge received an issue notice of violation in 6 areas. You can see there, those are the 6 areas. The water storage, that's the water tower. It has some windage rods that need tightened, so we were contracting a contractor to do that. Distribution there, the chlorine analyzer needed an air gap. That's completed. The management of operations, revisions of the contingency plan, that's been completed. The management and operations contingency plan circumstance exercise log, that's been updated and completed. Number 5, management and operations operator of record logbook, that's been updated and completed. And here's the one that's the sticking point. So the management and operations backflow prevention program. If you go to the next slide, Mayor. Thank you. So it's the law, it requires the public water supplier to protect to make sure there's a backflow where needed, so cross connection between different water sources doesn't get into drinking. And that's from 95 from Ohio Administrative Code. The codified ordinance here is from 2000. We have this, but we haven't really policed it. And if you look up there, it's industrial properties, commercial properties, public properties, and here's the kicker, residential. So we're getting dinged because we're not going door to door to make sure that everybody in the city doesn't need a backflow preventer. So it's ridiculous. What constitutes it? There it is down there at the bottom. So if you pretty much have a swimming pool, a hot tub, an irrigation system, or a separate water well, most likely you probably need a backflow preventer. I'm bringing it up because it's not going to be pleasant. You're probably going to get a lot of people griping at you at it. It's been in the books for a while. We've done the industrial and the commercial for the most part. We're pretty solid in that area. It's in the residential area, so we've got dinged from the EPA. So just letting you know. That's my report.
Anything for Mr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Bozick?
I have a few questions for you, Mr. Rohr. First one comes in from a citizen that had questions about the homestead exemption for sanitary sewer water. And the question was, when did the homestead exemption start for sanitary sewer? If you are aware of that date or year. Has it been recent? Has it been around for a long time?
Been around a long
It's been
time.
around for a long time. It's been part of our rates since before I've been here, so.
Okay. So the particular
It's not by us, though.
citizen had brought it up because they have had some issues with their water bill and have called the city several times. And every time they call, they are never aware that there's a homestead exemption. Or they're not made aware that there's a homestead exemption. So my question is to the administration or to Mr. Rohr is, what can the city do to better notify our residents that do qualify? Do we have a mechanism in place that will notify our citizens? Kind of walk me through what those steps are.
So I believe it's on our city's website that's available. So when we talk to somebody on the phone, we don't know their age, their financial circumstance, any of those items. So when the best thing a resident can do is when they apply for the homestead exemption through the county, so their property tax, they have to apply for that. And then when they do that, they can bring verification for their parcel number that they've been approved as homestead, or they can just come in and call us with their address and we'll look up the property tax value or the property tax record to see if it's been marked as homestead exempt, and then we give them that exemption.
Okay.
But we do instruct them to call the county, because the city can't do it.
Right.
We tell them, call the county, and if someone calls, I mean, like Molly said, homestead exemption's been around longer than I've been on city council.
Right. So I guess that's the big question, or the big, I guess, gripe was they've called pretty much every year for I don't know how many years, but, and I understand you don't know when you're on the other side of the phone how old they are, what their income status is. But I guess when somebody's just asking a general question, hey, what can you do, or what can I do to help lower my bill? And they're, oh, you can't do anything. You can't do, there's nothing available. There's no discount, nothing.
Well, typically when somebody's calling to ask that, I think we're under the impression that they are asking for some kind of financial assistance, that we do not have any programs for that. I'll be glad to have my staff, or I can also talk to the Heidi and the water department staff who answer those phones to, ask somebody, do you have a homestead exemption that you could be eligible for? But then if they do, they're going to have to go down to the county and go through that
Right,
process.
which I'm sure they'll happily do because
But
they're
I-
going to get the discount. But I guess what I'm saying is, as we're providing these services to the city.
It's actually listed
I
on,
understand it's coming through the county, but I'm just saying,
Can you provide the phone number of that person that we can call
I
them and
certainly
talk to?
can. I can absolutely
and
do that. I
actually.
think they're aware of
I
it now and they've gone
believe
through
it's
those steps.
listed, and I'll double check. I believe there's actually a note on the back of their water bill that identifies that there is a homestead exemption. But if there's not, I'll look at also revisiting that be placed on the back of the
I think
water
there's
bill.
always something we can do more beyond just saying, oh, there's nothing else we can do for you.
I can't.
So, and I understand you guys aren't the ones answering those calls or didn't take that call, but I'm just expressing the concern. And I'm sure that is an issue with just not this one citizen. I'm sure there's others in the community that aren't aware that this program exists for the sanitary sewer. They understand it's for their their property, but not for the other side, so.
Mrs. Kilway?
Yes, I just wanted to let Mr. Rohr know, with the work that's being done in my neighborhood in Village Green, with the cement work and the asphalt work, the curb work, I talked with Mr. Wygand, and we came up with a letter and passed it out to everybody before everyone started construction. I think that worked out very, very well. I've had very few phone calls or complaints or anything like that. And I just want to thank you guys very much for working with me on getting this communication. They have a couple of the streets done, and it looks very, very nice right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bowles, do you have anything for Mr. Rohr? Mr. Rohr, and I probably should have asked this in our Board of Control. On the demo for East Howe, we received a grant for that, for more money than our bids come in.
Correct.
So is our grant project specific, or can we use those additional funds to demo anything else?
It's specific.
Thank you. Doesn't hurt to ask.
No.
All right, let's move on to Mrs. Gilbride, Director of Finance.
I presented a written report, and I'll be glad to answer any questions on it. End of report.
Anything for Mrs. Gilbride? Thank you. Mrs. Raber?
Thank you. I also emailed council earlier today, and I would request that if you have any questions, you see me directly in private. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything for Mrs. Raber? Okay, let's move on. Item 10, Planning and Zoning, Mrs. Kilway.
Yes, I'll call Planning and Zoning to order. We have ordinance 2023-51 amended with the amended Exhibit A that was on 6/8 of 23. We also received the tract amended Exhibit A that was amended on 6/8 of 23. The ordinance 2023-51 amended Exhibit A and the tract Exhibit A, which is amending and supplementing sections 1108, signs, and appendix A3, sign-specific definitions of the Tallmadge codified ordinances. It is at third reading. We've had public hearing on it. We did ask for changes with the marquee signs, and the changes that were presented to us are not exactly what we had agreed upon during the last council meeting.
Madam Chair, we do have Ms. Hussing in the audience who
Right.
was here earlier, and thank you for sticking around.
I know, thank you so
That
much.
she can explain those the updates,
Okay,
if you would like.
yes. I know, we've already spoken verbally, and I do understand where she's coming from on this, but I just wanted to get out there because it's not exactly what we were talking about and what council had agreed to, so let's just get it out. Go ahead.
Well, I believe at the May 25th council meeting, you asked us to draft new language
Yes,
to allow portable marquee signs, allowing them for a maximum of 10 days and 2 years. I did not take that as a word for word.
okay.
Because there was discussion and you wanted us to look further into it. It is in my opinion that the marquee sign should remain prohibited. I think it is not a substantial benefit to a business to have that in their sign toolbox. I also think that they have plenty of temporary signs in their toolbox, banners, yard signs, etc. And as you may remember, as I explained earlier, to recap the temporary signs, they do not require a permit. They're regulated in number, size, by definition of a temporary sign, as well as the maintenance of the sign. So I don't think that the amended version should be adopted. Nevertheless, together with the law director, I prepared this amended exhibit dated June 8th. The changes are in green. On page 229, you'll see that the portable marquee sign was removed off the prohibited sign list. But the portable electric message center does remain, because it really is a different type of message center sign. The best place to place a portable marquee sign would be page 249 in the portable signs. And I added that in green, so that portable signs are those, the tent signs, the signs that you see on sidewalks, etc. So we'll wait till he gets to the A-frame signs.
Prohibited or not?
They're not prohibited, but we moved the portable marquee signs to that section because they're also portable. If you can go back up, I think you went too far. Keep going up. Right there. You'll see C. So what we did is put portable marquee signs may be permitted as part of a temporary special event and shall be approved pursuant to the approval of a temporary use permit in section 110409C1. That's in the use section of our zoning code. In that section, temporary special events or community activities require an event permit, and that event permit also incorporates a sign permit for that event. We added the number, the area, the height and width and placement of the sign, the regulations, and then temporary special events are permitted for up to 3 days. Anything beyond 3 days, under 45 days, require a conditional zoning certificate. So I know it's not 10 days every 2 years, but it could be, multiple times in the year, as long as they get a special events permit. So that's what the solution I came up with. But again, I still think that portable marquee signs should not be permitted.
Mrs. Kilway,
Yes.
so Mrs. Hussing, I like what you did there. I think it'd be much easier to enforce. The user comes in, they get an event permit, we know it's only for 3 days. I think that's much simpler for your office.
Thank you for understanding.
Anyone else on council have any questions on that? Any concerns?
I do have a couple questions.
Yes.
So this entire packet that we're looking at covers all of privately owned or, I should say, like businesses? Does it cover public property, such as like if it's owned by the city, if it's owned by the schools, if it's owned by the county? I'm thinking about like the county fair, that kind of thing.
Are you talking specifically to the special events?
Yes,
Okay.
to the special events in the
The county,
signage.
county fair, really, that's, the Summit County area, that's their use, that's their permitted use to have special events, so that wouldn't fall into that. And
Okay.
then you can address the city permits.
So the city technically is exempt. We typically will go through all the same processes, though. So we normally put ourselves through the same processes, even though we don't have to.
Okay. School, like the school system, is that covered under this or no?
Yes.
Yes, institutional.
Okay.
Yes, but just keep in mind with the marquee signs in particular, they have been prohibited, they've been listed under the prohibited signs for as long as I've been here, over 20 years, like plus longer than that. So I mean, they've been prohibited for a really long time, and really, we have not had that be an issue that has raised its head that I can really recall, except maybe once or twice. I'll throw that out there.
We actually had a business person at the stakeholder meeting who used to use those, and they had no objection with it remaining on the prohibited list. So that's why I don't think it's a substantial benefit to businesses.
Okay.
And the way that you have this now into this part of the code, it's easier to enforce a limited time, and they would have to come through and get a special use permit in order to have the sign.
An event
An event.
permit and then a separate sign permit.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, thank you. And going back to the discussion on the A-frame temporary signs, what if a local business has been utilizing one for some time? Would they just be grandfathered into?
We're not talking about the A-frames, we're talking about
No,
portable marquee sign. A-frames are allowed.
They're
Okay,
allowed.
yes. I was reverting back to that topic. I apologize.
Okay. So is council okay with the way Mrs. Hussing has put the marquee signs in to this part of the zoning code? Or would you rather have them completely pulled out? I know the last time we talked, everyone was okay with allowing marquee signs in. That's what we need to decide right now.
And we're in reference to the marquee signs, these are the ones just pictured in that, they're not mobile electronic ones, they're not,
Right,
they're only basically what we just saw on the photo.
yes.
Yeah, or similar,
Or
with the
s-
letters that you
right.
put in,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the electronic would still remain in the prohibited section.
So that was the big part that we had changed. That's why I want to make sure, are you guys okay with this? And are we okay to go ahead and approve this ordinance tonight, the way it's
Well,
written?
you have
can't
to, you
approve.
can't.
We
So
can't?
you only be able to adopt the amendment, because remember, at the last
That's right.
meeting, just for clarity, there was discussion about it, and there was some general discussion that maybe that might be okay, but everybody wanted to see it in writing, and so
Right.
this is the written amendment in front of you. So once you amend,
Mm-hmm.
it reverts back to second. Because it's a zoning ordinance, it has to have 3 readings, so it would be amend tonight, it would revert to second if you're so inclined to do that, and then it would not be able to be adopted until 3rd reading at the next meeting.
And then if they decide that they don't want to allow marquee signs, we can,
You could amend it again.
amend it again?
if you wanted to, or if you choose not to tonight, want to amend and not allow them, you can just not adopt the amendment, and then you could adopt the whole code without the amendment now, because that would be, it's at third reading now.
Right, that's what I was getting at. I was
Yes,
trying to
yes.
clarify.
So I want to make sure I understand it. If we decide
To allow the,
If we decide not to allow, then we have an ordinance in front of us tonight that's ready to be adopted.
Correct.
So I must not have heard everything you said exactly, Mrs. Hussing. Why are you against the marquee sign? I mean, from the way it impacts your department or?
The way, I don't think it's the way it affects my department. It's more about, the whole intent of the rewrite of the sign code was to eliminate the clutter, to regulate signs better, and to be more business friendly. Well, now we're gonna start permitting temporary signs again, of just this type of sign through the special events. I just don't think that having that extra sign out front of a business is suitable.
So here's what I would tell, just my opinion. And again, Mayor Klein and I, we've been in here where big projects ended up being stalled or over a sign back in a long time ago. I haven't had one business person, one realtor, nobody contact me, good or bad, about this rewrite of the sign ordinance. And then specifically, in the last 2 weeks, I've not had any business contact me and said, oh, that's what I've been needing to bring more traffic into my business. I mean, I've not heard anything. And so I would be more inclined, based on what I haven't heard from our business community, to adopt the ordinance that we're ready to adopt tonight. That's just my opinion. But
Make the motion.
All right, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on what it is we're looking at. The ordinance, without this recent amendment, the marquee sign is a prohibited signage altogether throughout the entire city.
And
Doesn't
it
matter
has
what it
been
is.
forever.
Doesn't matter if it's a special event or anything. It's out. What Ms. Hussing has brought to us is the marquee sign is permitted, but only as a temporary sign under whatever permit number it was. Is that correct?
That's correct. And,
Okay.
and the issue was really raised because the initial amendment added the electronic messaging to what was pre-existing as the marquee signs. And that is what prompted the discussion, just as prohibited. And then that prompted the discussion about whether or not to carve out the marquee for this in
and
a
we did
different
have
way.
a business in Tallmadge say that they would like to use them.
Once
The-
every two
Two years or
years.
so.
For ten.
Just to be able to have that option as a tool in their toolbox for special events.
The regular marquee,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Right.
Madam Chair, but they do have an option of putting banners up for a period of time for that special event. So as Mr. Goodwin was in here last time, and that's what prompted all this conversation.
Right.
For his 25th or whatever year anniversary, he could put a banner up saying
Right.
anniversary for a period of time without a permit.
I understand that, totally.
So there are options outside of the marquee sign.
Okay. Do we have a consensus?
Well, I'll make a motion.
There we go.
And again, I'm probably going to need help from Mrs. Raber. But I would move to adopt ordinance 2023-51 as amended at our last council meeting,
As amended on May 11th,
May 11th.
2023,
Right.
That's correct.
correct? And that motion then would not allow the marquee signs. Is there a second? I will second it, just so that we don't have it standing.
Discussion?
Can we have discussion?
Well, my discussion would be if we would vote to not adopt this, what does that do to the whole ordinance?
Stays.
It just stays and we keep talking
Stays on
about
the
it.
floor.
Let's see. If you don't have a majority, because you need 4 votes tonight, one way or the other, to move legislation forward one way or the other. You would have to be unanimous tonight to move it either direction.
But,
So otherwise, it stays on the floor.
so, okay, so my
Because
concern was.
If you had
It's
all
not, it's
4
not
of
gonna
you-
kill the ordinance.
Right, if you had all 4 of you reject it, then it would kill it,
Okay.
but
Is
you
that-
would all 4 have to reject it.
Based upon the recommendation from planning and zoning, is that the amount to reject it? It would need,
They can, I don't know, well, let's see what the,
it would be overturning.
let's see what it is, and then
it'd
we'll
be
do the mental
overturning their-
gymnastics.
It'd be overturning their,
You would be overturning the decision, so I think actually you have to have the 5
To overturn.
to
It
overturn.
would be 5 to reject.
If you're rejecting.
My concern was just that I didn't want to kill all the work that everyone had done because of what I was trying to get past tonight. That was all.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 2023-51 as it was amended on May 11th, 2023, accepting planning and zoning's recommendation. Okay.
Mr. Lowry?
Is there discussion?
Whoop,
Is there any further discussion?
I have one question, and it's unrelated to the marquee signs. And I just wanted to ask it before we actually put in a vote. The mounted digital display signs. And I have my laptop, I'm locked out. But, so without having it in front of me, I apologize, but what is the maximum size that can go on a business and be utilized as signage, rolling banners, ads, whatever it is?
For an electronic message center sign,
That is mounted to
that
the
is, so
building.
I believe this is the chart, Helene,
Yeah.
the mayor has up. So it depends on the type of sign, and it depends on where it is located and what the use is. So there's the chart.
Mayor, if you would go to page 253, that's the correct table. This is,
253?
it's, yeah, their numbers.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out.
You're at temporary signs right now.
Okay.
But you want to go to 253, right?
Well, to table 110811. So, that's residential, keep going a little further.
It's 52, here's
Right.
53.
So in that, so there you'll see the monument signs, and that dictates how large the sign, the actual electronic message center sign can be. And the last row, you'll see electronic message centers, it's 100% of the allowable size area. If they use the whole monument sign, they have to have at least a frame around the digital part. That is a big change from what we had before.
It's allowing more space for the electronic message.
It's allowing more space. Okay, so that was going to be, I guess, my thought with this is that I think these are going to become more popular, that they're going to be utilized more often. For example, I know there's one, I know it's in the JED, but there's one on the back of the Dairy Queen. It does appear to be very bright in the evening hours. So my thought was future development throughout the city. And I know that you had mentioned something about the total number of, whatever it was, candle power lumens, whatever they were rating it as.
Foot candles.
But if we have, I guess, strict guidelines within this that say the exact amount,
They do.
We do.
and then two, do we have the personnel able to actually go around and do these tests? Or are we doing these on an as-needed, as-complaint basis?
We do respond as complaint, but when new signs come in, it is part of their approval. These signs actually get programmed, and they program them with that luminance level. So then they have to, then, once it's installed, we inspect that.
Okay.
So the new signs that are coming out are like that. If there's any other signs, if there's a complaint, we'll go out with our fancy measuring tool that was much cheaper than the other one. So, and then we'll test the luminance that way.
Okay. And it is correct, just so I'm correct in this, it is one sign per business? Or is it one sign per building?
Depends on the building and the location and the corner lot, and there's a lot of variables, but that's what the whole chart's
So,
all about.
so the digital sign gets treated the same as a regular sign, based on location and street frontage?
Yes and no. I mean, we have specifications when it comes to the illumination and the type of illumination so that we don't have an overabundance. So we're trying to strike a balance between allowing businesses to be able to advertise and draw people in, but also not having, a road look too busy or distracting to drivers and balance that safety. So we believe this is kind of doing that by increasing it a little bit, but still not, again, it's not, I think there's not, typically in the sign code, there's not like a singular answer because it depends on what they're doing and how they're doing it. And is it a wall sign? Is it a multi-tenant sign, et cetera, et cetera?
So our code actually states where permitted, one message center sign is permitted per street frontage, up to a maximum of 2 message center signs per property.
So you could have one on each side of a corner, basically, if it was a corner lot.
I don't think that people would invest
I
that.
don't think so either, but.
And the whole reason why we change it this way is because people are investing businesses are investing a lot of money into these signs.
Yes.
Therefore, if you have the corner bonus, you're only allowed to have 50% of that. Why would you spend that money? That would be it would not be
That's,
smart.
Right, yeah.
But
Would
seven
be a good business
grains
decision.
has back-to-back.
7 grains is back-to-back, right? Does that count as one?
That's one sign.
That counts as one. What about the one at the rec center? Does that count as one or does that count as 2?
That would probably count as 2, I would think.
It's at an angle.
It's on the
at
corner.
45.
And it's at a 45, so
or
I believe it's
90.
at 1. There's a measurement of the 2 sides.
Because my particular thought process here is, for example, the Dairy Queen Plaza, you have, 6 businesses, 5 businesses in that one plaza. Can every single business in that plaza get those signs?
According to our code, they cannot. 2 per property. So it's up to the landlord to decide.
Thank you.
And then there's always options to ask for modifications that then get scrutinized by our commission
Variance.
members.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Okay, we ready? Mrs. Conti?
Okay. Mr. Lowry,
So motion was to adopt. Yes,
Mr.
Adopt the May
Bolus?
11th version.
correct.
Correct.
Mr. Bolus?
Yes.
Mr. Bozick?
No.
Mrs. Kilway?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
So,
Thanks,
make-
Lane.
thanks,
the
Helene.
vote is 3 to
Sorry
1,
it took
so
so
it
long.
stays in committee, correct?
Yes, it'll stay on the agenda.
All right.
Okay.
What about the amendment of June 8th?
It didn't get adopted, so.
didn't get
Unless
adopted.
someone makes a motion for that, then it just,
Okay, moving on.
it's a proposal.
That's a proposal, correct. Okay. So it's still at third reading. We will wait till the next meeting to vote on it again. Is that where we're at this point in time? Okay. So we'll go on to ordinance 2023-58, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract without competitive bidding as authorized by TCO 143.038 with OpenGov for the purchase of Planning and Zoning Department permitting, licensing, and code enforcement software and Street Department asset management software, appropriating necessary funds and providing for immediate enactment. This was in the budget, I do know that, and I'm trying to get it open on my computer so I can read it.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
let me just give you a brief update on this.
Thank
So
you.
this was, like you said, in the zoning department budget,
right,
and they had $70,000 for the purchase of a software program.
right,
In reviewing the contract and the proposal, it was determined that if we add the software for the street department, the asset management program, that would save us about $6,000 to $9,000 first year. Keep
Okay.
in mind that this is a multi-year contract and a system that you'll always have costs going in. So what this ordinance does is reduces the zoning department by 36,000 and puts it into the SMR so they can purchase the asset management and the software for Helene.
okay. And then it isn't, I'm just trying to see, so it's $36,000 for each department, correct?
No, Molly Wilkes.
Okay,
We're taking 36,000 from, so
Reduce.
we started with 79. We're
Yes.
36,500 is going to street, the remainder staying in zoning. So
Okay.
for this year, that is the cost. Will be then moving forward, additional costs annually for both of these departments for those softwares that will have to be in the budget. But we were able to, in the purchase of the software, provide it to work within the appropriation that council had given in 2023.
right, right, okay. And then do we know what the costs are each year, which I know, you know?
I do, I apologize, it's sitting on my desk.
That's okay.
But I will make sure that I have those numbers, we'll send out those numbers to council, so that you have them for next meeting.
Okay, we appreciate that. And that was the next question I was gonna have is, you do not need to have that.
You
this
can't
done this-
adopt it tonight
Okay, thank you.
because you don't have enough council people.
That's true.
Mrs. Kilway?
Yes,
Can I ask a question, please? And it can be for anybody in the administration or even Mrs. Raber, Mrs. Gilbride. When we look at software, you know, there's specific software, and then there's suites of software with all kinds of different modules. And I guess this is just maybe more for edification of if there's anyone watching. Do we evaluate when it's good to buy a standalone product as opposed to something that maybe multiple departments can use? I mean, how do we do that evaluation, I guess?
Well, actually, that's kind of what happened here. We really set out to only buy zoning software, But in that process, they discovered that there was an opportunity because of how closely the zoning department works with the street department with the inspections and that kind of stuff, that was something that is why we're presenting it this way, because it was gonna help the two departments actually work better together in sharing those responsibilities. But yeah, we always try to, if we can make departments work together better based on the software that we purchase, we want to do that. And we definitely look, when we are buying software, if there's opportunities for it to integrate, with our finance software, or, helping the departments more easily communicates always an advantage. So I think we always kind of try to do that when we can. It's not always possible, but when we can, we do.
Appreciate that, thank you. Thanks, Mrs. Kilway.
Yes, any other questions?
Madam
on
Chair, I
this?
do have a question
Yes.
for, well, it's a question or more of a statement, but I do like this idea of having the asset management software. I know in my time at the rec center, and Mike Rohr, if you recall, I did bring up something to you before about doing some asset management for the Parks and Rec Department that would be utilized mostly within the rec center, but also could be utilized at Maca Pool and out at our parks. So that's everything from the restrooms to the HVAC systems in the rec center to, the pumps on the pool slides. So if that is something that this is including, great. If it is not, I think we should definitely reassess and look at all of those areas, if possible, because I know when I was given the presentation for that particular software at the time, it was very robust. It had a lot of capabilities within it to where you could pull up a blueprint, you could pull up an aerial photo. Street department guys could pinpoint the exact location of an issue, whether it be a water main break or whatever it is, and it just keeps track of it, and it's just a running log for all of time. So I know that there's a lot of good software out there. So if it is not including some of those other departments, I think we should maybe reassess and look at that if possible. Because I believe the amount that we're talking about at $79K or $36K, whatever it is.
It's 280,000.
Over 3 years for these two pieces of software.
Yeah, see, that
is-
seems rather high, because the software that we were looking at the time was a lot cheaper than that, a lot cheaper, a fraction.
So you got to keep in mind, this is really for the zoning department, and that's how this got started. So the asset management can cover the parks, so there is an option there, but Elaine's permitting software is outdated and has no support, so we've got to get that moving. And it just so happens that the street department's permitting goes with the zoning, so it works out well. That's where the asset comes in. So the parks can be included, wasn't budgeted, wasn't there. We can look at that moving forward for next year's budget. But the main thing is, this is year 2 that are trying to get this software for the zoning department done. And we couldn't score it last year. This is the one that scores well. It comes recommended. The GPS is there. I mean, it's good software. So, and we can move forward with the other departments.
Any other questions on this ordinance at this time? Okay. Anything else to come in for planning and zoning? Closed committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Kilway. Finance, Mr. Bolus.
Yes, thank you. Call Finance Committee to order. Tonight, we have ordinance 2023-59 at first reading, authorizing the mayor to enter into a second amendment to the lease agreement with Summa Health System for space at the Tallmadge Recreation Center and providing for immediate enactment. Mr. Mayor, is this considered housekeeping or?
No, you can't adopt it tonight.
Okay.
You don't have enough council people.
That's right. Any discussion on this? Yes.
So we have just just gotten the agreement with SUMA as to the exact wording. We were close, but we just got that, so you don't have the actual contract yet, so we'll be forwarding that to you before the next meeting. But essentially, the big change for this, and the reason it's in front of council, is the change to the rent. So before, there was quite a bit of language, and the adjustment was based off like the consumer price index and so on and so forth, and this just cleans it up and makes it be 5% per renewal period. And it just makes it easier for SUMA to plan and budget accordingly, and it makes it easier for us so that it's not something that's not as readily known. And so it's just making it cleaner. And then they're exercising the renewal option for the next 3 years and then extending that for another three 3-year terms. So, but we'll get you the agreement now that we've got that worked out with them, and you'll have that for the next meeting.
Okay. Seems like a really good partnership, and seems like it came to a really good agreement, mutual agreement.
Yes.
Any discussion?
We're very lucky to have SUMA Health Systems for the rehab in our facility. I mean, they're top-notch.
I agree. All right. Ordinance 2023-59 will remain at first reading. And with that, anything else for Finance Committee today? Thank you. I close committee.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Personnel, you're back up.
Yes, I call Personnel Committee to order. Tonight, we have no ordinances or resolutions before us. Is there anything to come before Personnel Committee this evening? Dr. Cooper did email us a report giving us several updates. So please just take a look at that and let him know if you have any questions. All right, with that, I'll close committee.
Thank you. Community issues, Mrs. Kilway.
Thank you. I'll open community issues. We also have no legislation this evening. Anything from council on community issues?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Rohr and Ms. Hussing for taking all my questions from the community input this past 2 to 3 weeks. I just really appreciate the time they put into investigating all those cases.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Mr. Bosick?
Madam Chair, yes. I was not at the last council meeting where you guys discussed some of this, but I did watch the live stream after the fact. Have we gotten any other updates or feedback from Metro in relation to the bus stops?
I have not, but there was a big article in the Beacon Journal this week prior to today, so either Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. I am still getting messages from people that just feel like we were left out in terms of having open discussion within our city about this. Not so much. I'm not. Well, I am getting some complaints about just some people just don't want bus traffic going down East Avenue. They already feel that they're dealing with enough traffic. But I try to make them understand who Metro's trying to help, and I try to make them understand that the bus doesn't stop on East Avenue unless someone wants to get on or get off. The biggest complaint I get is about the process. And, we invited them to be here 2 weeks ago. They told me they wanted to come. We invite them, and then in the same breath, well, we're not available on the 11th. If it were my company, and it's not my company, but if it were my company, my community engagement person would have been here tonight, and they would have been on our agenda. But Metro doesn't need us to do what they want to do. And when you don't need an entity, this is how you get treated. And it's unfortunate. I think that they're being very disrespectful to us. Well, I think they're being very disrespectful to the mayor, as the mayor, and they're being disrespectful to us because we're taking heat that is their fault. And so it's very frustrating to me.
But I do have a commitment from them to evaluate the bus stops. If they're not being utilized, they will pull them out. And it is public transportation.
Right.
Citizens in Tallmadge do need public transportation. The bus going up East Avenue is going to the Cascades for a specific purpose, to allow residents to be able to go there to shop, turn around, hop on the bus, and go back to their residence. Now, do Tallmadge residents pick that up? Half of them don't even know it's running there because I'm traveling East Avenue a lot to try to see, watch, see what's going on, see if anybody's stopping. I've seen 2 or 3 buses and that's it. And now I'm gonna get phone calls because they're there every hour on the hour, but
Well, and I just saw on social media today, someone said, how do you get your, 15-year-old child, to their job during the summer when you work? Now we have a bus that they can jump on the bus, they can run to the Cascades, and they can, work at one of the retail stores or something
And
like that.
one little unknown thing that Metro needs to educate the residents, 3/4 of a mile off of East Avenue, both directions, so that's a mile and a half.
Yeah.
Going each direction. They'll send a private bus to a resident free of charge to pick them up and take them just about anywhere they want to go within the bus route. Not that bus route, but in Summit County.
Right.
If somebody on East Avenue wants to go to Cleveland Airport, they could hop on the bus and make it to Cleveland Airport from East Avenue, hopping on a bus. Now, it may take you a few transfer times,
Right,
but it goes
But,
to
yeah.
Independence.
yeah, but if you need to get there. Yep. Okay, anything else from community issues? Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Willis.
just on that topic, when the East Avenue widening project comes about, would that then impact the stops or the route in general, perhaps?
I would certainly think so, because it will be a mess.
Yes.
That's where I was getting.
Be,
Madam Chair, I have a
Yes.
follow-up question to that. Do we know if their signage falls within our sign codes? Does it meet the requirements? Or do they not need to meet the requirements?
as a public entity, they meet the requirement to be there, I would have to say, as an informational piece of the bus stop. All right.
Yeah, I believe that was reviewed by the zoning department already. That question came up already, and there's not anything that is out of,
Did they seek approval to put the signs on the telephone poles from the utility companies?
that I don't know. That's between them and the utility company.
Okay. Anything else for community issues at this point? The only thing that I have is Circle Fest is coming up in a couple of months. Is council doing a float or golf carts again?
Well, I've been thinking about this because I'm kind of a planner, but I would be willing to do it and try to find 2 golf carts, like we did last year, or maybe even something else if we had a
Check
commitment
the battery.
from council to do it,
Right.
So-
Okay. So since we don't have everyone today, I know I would do it absolutely, but we'll talk about this next
Okay.
meeting. Anything else for community issues? Hearing none, close committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Kilway. Safety, Mr. Bozick?
Thank you. I will open the safety committee. We currently have no ordinances in front of us this evening. I'll open it up to the rest of us on council and administration, if you have any input. No. We did receive an update, as Mr. Bullis had mentioned, in relation to an update from the chief as well as from our Director of Public Safety I won't read the entire thing into record, but I would like to know if our Director of Public Safety will be present at any future meetings, because I believe he's been absent for several meetings, and there's probably been a lot of questions circling around a lot of different things going on at the moment that I think would be pertinent that he be here and answer those questions.
I'll take that under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you. It was just made a comment this evening that he's not obligated to be here, that's all, so.
None of us are on this side of the table, but we were here at 7 o'clock today.
Well, about that then. So,
Go ahead.
I'll gladly bring up why the meeting started late, because we were recognizing two of the Tallmadge police officers that had reopened in the investigation and were able to get a conviction for a life sentence for a very terrible person. And from my understanding, it was asked that they do that recognition here in council chambers during the council meeting this evening.
And we said we could do it at the council meeting. I'd love to do it at a council meeting. Tonight was not the night. I didn't even think we'd have a quorum tonight because Mr. Lowry was not going to be here. Mrs. Allman already said it, and Mrs. Kilway has pneumonia, but she did come.
Mm-hmm.
So we offered the next council meeting. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, that was
Not relayed to you, I understand.
not exactly what was relayed to us.
I'm relaying it to you.
Well, I think it would be in the best interest to be as transparent as possible about this, because we're talking about two officers that put in an immense amount of time. And, I mean, just to be able to recognize our Director of Law as well and her participation in this as well. And for city council members to have to decide, do we want to go next door and recognize these two officers, or do we want to come here and do the council meeting, or can we recess, which is what they chose to do, thankfully, chose to do. But to have to put the council members in that particular predicament because the administration chose or said to them,
Well,
we're
keep in
not
mind,
going
the
to do that.
administration until 2 o'clock today didn't even know that event was going on, and because we offered it at the next council meeting. I don't want to go into grave details here, but I will gladly, I called Bo this afternoon. I talked to him. I'm very proud of what the Tallmadge Police Department did. So is everybody on this administration. But we do have a council meeting tonight to run. Wasn't sure. I mean, it was announced at the last council meeting. Two of the members weren't even going to be here. So why?
So they were told yesterday that they could not attend here and do the recognition here. So who in your administration?
I did.
So you knew yesterday, not 2 o'clock today?
I knew yesterday. No, it was Monday. They asked me if they can come to the council meeting. And I said, now's not a good council meeting. Do it at the next council meeting. I did not. So I got the phone call today from, or the email, just like all of you. Half of council wasn't even invited to this thing tonight until 2 o'clock today. Dennis, were you invited?
I was invited early today via a phone call, and then when I had a phone conversation with Mrs. Gutman about her possibly not being here today, she made me aware of the email that was sent.
At what time?
Well, when I had my conversation with Mrs. Gutman, it was probably 1 or 2 o'clock. Whenever that email was sent, Mary let me know about the email.
I know a couple of the council folks did receive a text message yesterday, which we did not, so. Anything else?
Now, I feel that this centers an awful lot around perhaps some, I hate to say it this way, but maybe some mismanagement amongst the Director of Public Safety and our relationship that we are trying to mend or try to build with our police department. And that is clearly showing at this point. So, and there's no, you don't have to respond to that, but I'm just stating that I feel that that's probably what a lot of this is centered around. So, anything else for the Safety Committee this evening? No? Thank you. With that, I will close committee.
Thank you. Public service, I need to run public service today,
Oh, you're busy.
this evening. Yeah, Mrs. Hallman and Mrs. Gutman are both not available. So we have our third reading ordinances, ordinance 2023-54 amended, Exhibit A, and ordinance 20-2354. Authorizing the mayor to enter into a memorandum of understanding between the County of Summit and the City of Tallmadge for installation of conduit along the Summit Area Regional Council of Governments fiber route, appropriating the necessary sums and providing for immediate enactment. So this is a third reading. It's been amended, correct, Mrs.
Been
Raver?
amended and
It's ready to be
go.
adopted.
Mr. Lowry?
Yes, Mrs.
I
Kilway.
move to adopt ordinance 2023-54.
Motion to adopt, second. We have to have a second first. I'll second it. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a clarification question. So this, going back to the last meeting, we had received an estimate from the county, correct? And then it didn't include certain line items or labor and.
That's
could we
correct.
Okay, and that was in the amount of 55,000?
That's, yes. Give or
Okay.
take $1,000 here or there.
Okay, and then in evaluating that quote and then the change,
So the original price they gave me was for installation only, not the material cost. So the county said, sorry, we forgot to tell you that we have to add the material. So to run a 2-inch conduit or 1.5-inch conduit from North Thomas Road, South Thomas Road, through the industrial park, West Avenue, Nottingham, Overdale, Kent Drive, Allendale, Howe Road to the Joint Dispatch Center, we will have an additional conduit earmarked strictly for the city of Tallmadge with handholds throughout that distance. That's what this price, it's about $10 a foot to have that pipe installed in the ground, which then allows us that we could connect from our fiber system to Lions Park, to our property on Howe Road, back to City Hall through the fire station.
and then the actual deployment of the fiber itself, that would be at an additional expense on the city.
That's correct.
Okay, do we know what that is?
No, that would be at a later date.
Okay, I'm just, okay, and is it a certainty that by laying the conduit, it's most likely going to happen, or is it still?
That our own fiber would go in that?
Yes.
That would be up to future administrations.
Okay. And based on the finance department, this is still recommended? Based on the budget? And the change in the estimate?
This is asking council if they're willing to spend that money. We have, excess funds in the fund balance in the general fund, so you'd be making that decision if you find it worthy to use that excess funds.
I was just asking your opinion on it.
You're asking the finance person to spend money?
I have a lot of opinions about the fiber, to be honest with you. I'm not a big proponent. I think it is a large expense for a city of our size to be providing fiber to our residents. It's very expensive. We explored it. But there are other schools of thought and administrations, and like I said, the funds are available to run the conduit if council sees fit, that they see that that is something that they want to explore providing to our residents. This is a very good price to do it. So if it's something, and I think that's where the mayor's at with it, and what council needs to evaluate. If you feel that we want to have an opportunity someday to provide our citizens with fiber from the city, this price that we are getting to do this is a very good price.
And this would be in a multi-phase process in that it's municipal use
Like you said, we
primarily.
would not be doing that if it was strictly us installing that pipe. The only reason this is even in front of council, because we're piggybacking on the county's loop that's going to the Joint Dispatch Center. So while they're directional boring their pipe, they're going to pull additional pipe in the ground for us specifically. So we could do fiber at our parks and hook, instead of doing an air card at Lions Park, we could run fiber from this down into the park and be able to put Wi-Fi in the park.
Right.
So, well, it's my committee. I have a question. So, Mayor, if we start down this road, this path, and take advantage of the pricing and the opportunity, to some degree, in our residents' eyes, those that are really, really looking forward to fiber, we start the clock on incrementally doing this either by ourselves or in conjunction with some other entity moving forward. Because we're starting a process. Would you agree with that?
A little bit I would agree to, but no, I don't know if it's really, again, I said, if we were not doing piggybacking with the county, I wouldn't come to council and say, let's spend, well, I'd have to spend triple the money to do just that route. And,
Right, so without
if it
this
wasn't
financial
for-
help on this project going forward, unless we get like help, it's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 times more. Okay.
No question.
You're right. I'm not against taking advantage of an opportunity. That's good. I just don't want the expectations to be set so high. That's all, going forward.
If we didn't have the forethought back when I started becoming service director 25 years ago, or whatever it was, to put conduit in the ground every time we did a project, we would not be connected to the rec center today, nor would 210 Osceola be connected, nor would the fire station. The only place that had fiber was between City Hall and the police department. But we did that, and now this is just another pipe in the ground that we could lease out to another. We could make money on that lease of that pipe because we have a pipe in the ground, which is hard to get.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I do have a question. So just to clarify, the original quote came in at 40-something.
92,000.
Yeah, 92,000 was the original, and then they came back with the $48,000 increase.
For the labor, okay, so total, we're at, I'm sorry,
140,000.
140,000.
140. And the cost of the first conduit, let's just talk about the first one. The first one that's going from here to Howe Road is conduit with fiber,
Not our fiber.
not our fiber, but that is what this price includes, or we are not paying for that at all?
We're paying that through our joint dispatch center.
Okay. So
The
that,
county's really installing that fiber.
okay. So for project's sake, if you were to break that out, how much is that one conduit cost with fiber? Our cost for the city. If that's gonna go to the joint dispatch center, that cost is separated amongst,
It's going to be part of just the cost of being a member. So it's not like we're going to get an extra bill from the county for this project. It's just part of
but I'm just saying. if
our
there's-
participation.
If there's 10 members, that's each member pays 14K.
That's not that's not how it works. The way the dispatch center is funded is
So what is our city's cost? That's my question.
To install the fiber for the county broadband,
Yes.
I would have to say 0.
Okay. So,
The operation cost of the Joint Dispatch Center, which we are a member of, there's a cost that is part of communications is in that price that we've had for,
okay. So then my other question then, the second conduit that's going in the ground will not have anything in it. It'll just be a pipe in the ground.
correct.
That cost to put the pipe in the ground is 55K?
150.
The 140,000.
140 total. That is the cost of our pipe in the ground.
Correct. The 140 is only our pipe. The
Our pipe
whole
only.
rest of the other project is
Okay.
being paid by the county.
And you said it was $10 a foot to put the fiber in?
Ours in. The pipe.
The pipe.
This pipe, if
Okay.
you put it per foot, the 140 equates to about $10 per foot.
Okay. So if we were to put fiber in that pipe now, today, do we know what that cost is?
We do, I mean, what? I want to say $3 a foot, but you have to have a purpose for it. And we don't have a purpose for it right now unless we go in the 2024 budget and say we want to hook up Wi-Fi at Lions Park. Then I do have a purpose for it.
Okay.
But that would be in the budget.
Because the more I'm thinking about this, when you mentioned the two parks, Lions Park and Howe Road Park, or not Howe Road Park, North Avenue Soccer Complex. How many pickleball courts do we have now on the,
4,
we have 4 total?
I think, isn't it 4? Yeah.
Could there be temporary ones set up? For example, if we were to host a tournament for pickleball, an outdoor tournament, could there be more than just the 4 courts?
You could put 2 more on the tennis court, so you'd have 6.
So you'd have a total of 6. So 6 courts going at once. I think that'd be a pretty sizable tournament. I haven't played in any. I don't know if, Mr. Lowry, if you've played in any recently, but if you have a tournament, they're going to require the use of some sort of Wi-Fi. So I think having that as a option is good. It helps us utilize that park, helps us perhaps cover the cost of doing some of that work to the park. In addition, we're talking about North Avenue Soccer Complex, and we're talking about doing the demo at the building, and Mike Roy has some yet to be talked about plans, big plans for that site, as he said. I think there's some opportunities there that would justify putting the fiber in the conduit now, because I would think if you're already there doing the conduit, it's not going to be any more laborsome to do the work now, but it's going to be probably 3 times as much to do the work later.
Not to pull the fiber into the pipe, it would be a different company, most likely too. This company that's putting the conduit in, I do not believe they are the ones installing the fiber. They're putting the infrastructure in.
So, but to my point though, it would be cheaper to have one company come out and do a pool with 2 fiber
I mean, I
lines.
could get that price for
Yeah.
later.
I would think that price would be something that, I mean, I know, I would like to know what that cost would be, and I'm sure maybe some others on council would like to know.
I'll get you that price,
Thank you.
but I need I mean, we're at 3rd reading. The contractor's in town getting ready to start the process of pulling pipe, the county's pipe.
When do they start pulling the fiber?
Oh, they won't start pulling the fiber until fall.
Okay. All right.
They're at Britton Road right now, getting ready to cross in to Tallmadge, probably next week with the conduit.
Okay. So we have a little bit of time to make that decision
For the,
fiber.
yeah.
For the fiber end of it. Yeah.
I'll get
Okay.
you that price.
Yeah, if we can get that price, I think it would be beneficial to know that. So, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Mrs. Conti, please call the roll.
Mr. Bozick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kilway,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry.
Yes.
Mr. Bolus.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-54 is adopted, 4-0.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2023-56, Exhibit A, an ordinance to approve, adopt, and enact the 2023 replacement pages to the codified ordinances, to repeal ordinances in conflict therewith, to publish the enactment of new matter, and providing for immediate enactment. This is at first reading. We cannot adopt it this evening, so it'll stay in the Public Service Committee. Ordinance 2023, and Mrs. Rayburn, unless you wanted to just make some comments on that this evening.
Oh, just that this is a housekeeping matter. This is the part where we're reconciling to the state changes. So our codifier will go through and make the changes so that it's just our local ordinances, criminal and traffic, reflect what the state did for the year. So that's what this is. But again, I would not ask for first reading tonight because
Okay.
it'll take longer.
And I don't have a question on this ordinance, but what I do get questioned about sometimes, and I just don't know the answer, is how we determine, or how you determine when we codify things or when we wait.
So we like to at least do an annual codification. If we have, this also just puts into the code the things that we have adopted through whatever time frame it is. So it kind of depends on what is actually codified. So all these ordinances that council adopts, not all of them are codified ordinances. In fact, most of them are not. Most of them don't end up in the code. So I try to take a look at how many of them are there and then not wait too long and judge it, but there's budgetary constraints as well. Since we're on this topic, I would like to take the opportunity, though, to say that I'm excited because as part of the 2023 annual appropriation, there was budgeted for us to be able to switch codifiers and use the codifier that's associated with our website now. And once that happens, it's an 18-month process, so it's not gonna happen anytime soon. It'll be well into next year before it's done. But they're doing a review, gonna clean it up. You'll get all that before that's officially done, but also we'll make searching very easy, so people can go to our website and just put a keyword in and actually be able to search our codified ordinances, and not have to go to a separate host, which is what is happening now. So I'm excited for that. It'll be much more user-friendly, I think, and it has a lot of really cool features that we will explain further as we get closer to that. But again, that is in the future, so we'll give it a little bit of time before I get into detail with that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next, we have ordinance 2023-57, authorizing the mayor to contract with Equix Integrity, Inc. for CCTV inspection and cleaning and consulting services related to city sewers and providing for immediate enactment. Again, because of only having 4 present this evening, we cannot entertain adopting this. But Mrs. Kilway.
Since there's been several ordinances that we really wish to have been able to adopt to speed along, the workings of the city, I would be all for having a special meeting next week if we can get everyone together.
I appreciate the thought, but we're not available next
Not
week.
available, okay.
And these can wait.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
I shouldn't have said we're not available. I mean, we'd make ourselves available.
Right.
But I think these could really wait 1-2 weeks.
Okay.
As long as we have 5 people here next week.
We'll be
or
fine.
next council meeting.
We'll be fine. So with that, is there anything else for public service? Closed committee. We'll move to item 11, reports of special committees. I have nothing, Mr. Bolus. Announcements, I have none. Anybody have any announcements? Then, item 13, entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Lowry,
Mrs.
I
Kilway.
move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. First and second. Any
Mrs. Kilway?
discussion? We're not going to discuss adjournment.
assumed that.
Mrs. Conti?
Mrs. Kilway?
Yes.
Mr. Lowry?
Yes.
Mr. Bolus?
Yes.
Mr. Bozick?
Yes.
Thank you. It's 9:13. We are adjourned.